So the first part of this assignment is going to have you make an actual part in Onshape that you will then use in the assembly process of your peristaltic pump. The description of the peristaltic pumps and the options you and your team have are later in this video. So I will talk about the 2-to-1 ratio, the 3-to-1 ratio, and the 4-to-1 ratio, and we'll actually go through the entire process of making the pumps or assembling the pumps. But for now, I'm going to walk you through the process of making a part of the pump that you will then use in the assembly process. As a side note, later in the video, I tell you to make a new document in Onshape to do your assembly process in. Rather than making a new document, just use the document we're about to make and then go from there. So I'll remind you of this at the end of making this part, and I'll also throw in a note in the video to remind you to ignore me saying to make a new document and to just use the document we're in right now. So we're going to create a new document. So create document. For this video, we're going to call it the 2-to-1 ratio, because later in the video, we're going to assemble a peristaltic pump that has a 2-to-1 gear ratio. And again, I talk about these gear ratios later in the video. So we'll create that. We're going to come down here to the Part Studio 1, right click on it, click rename, and we're going to call it the triangular gear. I'm going to hide a couple of these planes. I don't like having all 3 planes when I'm working, so I'm going to be working on the top plane. So I'm going to come over, I'm going to click on the eyeball next to front and the eye next to right. So that way I'm going to hide those planes. The planes are still there. If you want to turn them back on, you can turn them back on. But I'm just going to be working in the top plane for the time being. So we'll click on Sketch, click on the top plane, and then we're going to come up here to Inscribed Polygon. We're going to click on the origin, which is this dot is the origin. We want to make sure that we move our mouse around. You see these dashed lines popping up? We want to see those dashed lines pop up right there. This will make it so the triangle that we make is in the correct orientation. So as you move your mouse around, you'll see that those triangular or those dashed lines appear. That just means vertical or horizontal. We're going to make it vertical. So again, move your mouse around until you see that dashed line. When you see that dashed line, click, and then move your mouse up and down. We want to make a triangle, so it has 3 sides. So again, move your mouse up and down. As I move down, I get more sides on my polygon. As I move up, I get less sides. We want a triangle. When you have 3, click, and then it's asking for the diameter of the circle inside the polygon. We're going to make that 1.026, and then hit enter. So now we have a triangle, an inscribed triangle with a circle inside with a diameter of 1.026. That diameter comes from us actually making the pump ourselves and then giving you the part. So this is a known measurement. This is not anything that you're expected to figure out. This is a known measurement that we made as we made the pump. So we're going to hit the finish on the sketch. We're going to go ahead and extrude this triangle, give it some thickness. So we're going to extrude, click on the triangle, make sure it says solid, make sure it says new. We're going to click on 1 inch, type in 0.25, and then hit the check. So now we're going to put some fillets on the edges, make them curved and not sharp. So we'll come up here, hit on fillet, click on it, click those 3 edges. And as I say later in the video, if you're using a mouse or a trackpad, if you right click and hold and then move your mouse around, you can rotate the object to make it easier to get to the points you want to get to. So once you have those 3 points clicked on, we'll come over here to the radius. We'll make it 0.16 inches and then hit the check mark. So now we'll go back to sketch. So we'll click on sketch, click on the top of the triangle. We're going to go to circle, so center point circle. I'm going to click on the top of this cube just so we're looking straight down. I'm going to hover my mouse until I see that square pop up and that fillet be highlighted. That means that we're at the middle of that fillet. So we don't want to do it over here. We don't want to do it up here. We want to move our mouse around until that square pops up. I click right there on that square, drag over to where the fillet meets the side of the triangle. You'll see that little square pop up, and you'll see the diameter indicated by that 0 with a dash through it is 0.32. We'll do the same thing down here. So hover around until you find that square, click on that square, move down, click on where the fillet meets the edge of the triangle, where that square appears, click again, one more time. All those circles should have a diameter of 0.32 inches. We'll finish that sketch. We'll do an extrude again. We'll click on all 3 circles. Sometimes when you click, it does not take, so I have to click twice. You'll see it starts extruding, so we'll click on this circle and this circle. So all 3 circles are being extruded up. Make sure it says add and solid. We'll come down here to depth. Make that depth 0.35 inches and hit our check. Our bearings are going to go on these little poles here. So to make it easier to get those bearings on, we're going to put fillets on these tops as well. So we'll come here again and do fillet. Click on all 3 tops of the little poles we just made. And then we'll come down here, we'll make the radius 0.05 and hit enter. So now we have some nice curved sections that will help us get our bearings onto these poles. And then we'll check. So now we're going to move to the back of our gear here. Again, to do so, I'm holding my right click button on my mouse and just moving the mouse. You can do the same thing with the trackpad. Hold the right click button and just move your fingers on the trackpad to rotate to the back. You can also just click on the bottom of that cube, that view cube up the top. So we'll do a sketch again. So click on sketch, click on the back of the triangle. We're going to go up here to the rectangle. We're not going to click on this yet. We're going to do the drop down. We're going to do center point rectangle. Click on the origin again. Just drag it out arbitrarily. We're going to put dimensions on it in a second. Or make the dimensions of this 0.226. Hit enter. It'll move to the next side, 0.226. Again, these dimensions came from us making the pump parts. So these were through trial and error. These are not meant for you to be figuring out on your own. So again, these dimensions are known by us because we went through and made these parts and made them through trial and error. So 0.226 for the square. We'll hit that check. We'll do an extrude again. We're going to click on that square we just made. In this case, we're going to remove it. We're going to cut into the triangle. So we're going to click on remove and then make the depth 0.2 inches. Hit our check. And then one more thing. We're going to add a hole right at the top of this because effectively this square will allow us to seat this gear onto, or this triangular gear onto one of our other gears and then use a screw to actually attach this triangular part onto one of our other gears. So we need a hole in this that we can use to screw into the other gear. So to do that, we're going to do one more sketch. Click on the back of the triangle, do a circle, it's a center point circle. Click on the origin. Again, just arbitrarily drag it out. You'll see that box become white, the dimension box become white. We'll type in 0.075. We'll hit check. We'll do an extrude. We'll click on that circle. We'll click remove. In this case, we can leave it as an inch just because it's cutting through the triangle, and that's exactly what we want. So we're removing it. We're saying remove an inch of this circle. It cuts through the triangle. It leaves us that nice hole we want. And then we'll hit our check, and we're done with our triangular gear. So again, this triangular gear is a part of the assembly that is going to be done in the following part of this video. In that part of the video, I do import the triangular gear. You do not need to import that triangular gear because you just made it. So this triangular gear is the exact same thing that I import in the following section of this video. And also in the following section, I tell you to go ahead and make a new document and import everything in. But you've already got your triangular gear here in this portion. So when I say to make a new document, ignore that and just go down here to insert new tab and import the files that I import. Once you do that, then you can follow along with the steps. So again, you do not need to import the triangular gear that I import because you just made it. So this gear is exactly the same as the one I import. So when I say to make a new document, ignore that, stay right here in this document, go down here to the insert new tab and import all the files that I import aside from this gear, and then just follow through with my steps, and you'll be able to make the assembly of the pump and then complete the assignment. So for this assignment, you're going to be assembling a peristaltic pump in Onshape. This pump is what your team is going to be using to move water throughout your hydroponic system. You have three options for your pump in terms of the gear ratios, how fast or how slow the pump moves water. You have a 4-to-1 ratio, a 3-to-1 ratio, and a 2-to-1 ratio. All that means is that the gears on the back of the pump are various sizes. So this is the 4-to-1 ratio. In this case, this large gear has 32 teeth and this small gear has 8 teeth. All that means is that for this large gear to do one full rotation, this smaller gear has to rotate 4 times. For the 3-to-1 ratio, this large gear has 30 teeth and the small gear has 10 teeth. So again, for this large gear to do one full rotation, this smaller gear has to rotate 3 times. And lastly, the 2-to-1 ratio, this large gear has 28 teeth and this smaller gear has 14 teeth. So for this large gear to do one full rotation, the smaller gear has to rotate 2 times. These ratios correlate to how fast or how slow you can move water with this pump, so you and your team need to consider how much flow rate you need from the pump and then select the ratios you want. You can access these gears from Canvas when you decide on the ratio you want, but for this assignment, we're going to assemble the 2-to-1 ratio. If you decide that you want to do a 3-to-1 ratio or a 4-to-1 ratio, the assembly process is exactly the same. We're just going to do the 2-to-1 for this video. So to do so, we're going to go to Canvas or to Onshape. I already have a folder for the pumps where I assembled all 3 assemblies. I'm going to make a new folder or a new document to do the work in. So I'm going to do create document. I'm going to name it 2-to-1 pump ratio. You can name it whatever you want. Hit create. At some point in this assignment, you should have already downloaded the files from the Canvas assignment. You need those files to do this assembly. So hopefully you know where those files are. I'm going to go import those files right now. I'm going to go down to Insert New Tab, click on it, click on Import. In my case, I have a folder called Pump Stuff, 2-to-1 ratio pump. All of these files are the ones you need. These 2 files right here are the 2-to-1 ratio gears. Everything else is the same across the various ratios. So I'm going to highlight all these files, hit Open. Onshape will ask us how we want to import them. We're going to leave it as default. So just import to this document, import appearances, and then click on Import. Onshape will go through and import everything. You'll see the bottom tabs start populating. When everything is imported, I'm going to hit Close. And then you can go down and click through your tabs. This triangle gear, I imported it, but you should have made this earlier in the video. So the video does show you how to actually make this triangle gear. So you will not import this, you have already made this. And again, this was done earlier in the video. Here's our servo. Here's our servo horn. Here's our overall mount for the pump. Your team will need to figure out, or will need to add a mount to this pump to mount it to your system. That mount can be however you want it to be. So this is kind of the starting point. And later on, when you start assembling and actually building your hydroponics, whoever is responsible for the pump will add a mount to this in whatever way works. This is the bearing we have in our kits. Here's our big gear, our 28 tooth gear, and our small, our 14 tooth gear. So now we're going to start assembling. We'll click on assembly 1. I'm going to go ahead and right click on it and rename it. Just 2 to 1 pump. Go here to insert. We're going to choose the gear pump flat wall first. Bring it in. If you're using a mouse, which makes things a lot easier in CAD, if you hold right click, you can rotate around. So we're going to look at the front of this. The first thing I'm going to do is look at this mount. I apologize, I did not hit the check, so we're going to do that again. Hit that check mark to keep it in. When you click and drag on it, it moves. We do not want this to move. We want this to be fixed, so we can do all of our assembly on a fixed point. So we're going to right click on this. We're going to click on fix. And now when I try and click and drag, it does not move. So now we have a fixed point to start doing our assemblies on. We'll go back to insert. We'll bring in one of these bearings. Just put it somewhere close to it. It does not matter where it goes. It's somewhere close so you can see both things. Hit the check. We'll do the fasten mate. We'll zoom in on this bearing. I'm going to click on this outer ring that's highlighted. And you'll notice over here in the fasten menu, it populates. It says mate connector 1. I'm going to rotate to the back of the pump housing. I'm going to click on this outer ring right here. And then the bearing will automatically move to that point. We'll hit the check, and we'll go ahead and close the fasten menu for the time being. So now we have the bearing fixed into the house. And now we'll get our next part. So we'll go back to insert. We're going to bring in the 28 tooth gear. Again, just put it somewhere nearby. Hit your check. This time, we're not going to do a fasten mate. We're going to do a revolute mate, which will allow the gear to rotate about a point. So we'll go here, click on revolute. We're going to zoom in. We're going to click this circle right here that I've highlighted, and then rotate to the back. Zoom in on the bearing. Click this circle right here. And now the gear will snap to that bearing. Hit that check mark. Close the revolute. And now when I click and drag on this gear, it'll rotate about that bearing. Next thing we'll do is go back to insert. Bring in the triangle gear that you made. Hit check. Do a fasten mate. Zoom in on the triangle. We're going to zoom into that square. We just want that marker to be right in the middle. That marker, as I move my mouse around, that marker moves. That marker indicates where it's going to snap to when we do a mate. So we want that marker to be right in the middle of the square. So we're going to click on that. Again, you'll see it populates over here. We'll go back to the triangle gear. We're going to make sure that marker is right in the middle, not on the edge like it is right now. So make sure it's in the middle. Just move your mouse around until it goes where you want it. Click. And then the gear for the triangle will move. As you see, it's upside down. So we're going to do a flip primary axis. And that will snap it to where it needs to be. So now we'll hit the check. We'll close fasten. And now when I move the big gear, the triangle gear moves with it because they're now assembled. So we'll go back to insert. We're going to bring in 3 of these bearings. So click and drag, and click and drag. Hit the check. We're going to do 3 fasten mates. So click on fastened. Zoom in, click this ring. Click on this ring right here. Check. The fasten mate is still open, so we can do it again. Click on that ring. Click right there. And then one more time. And so now we effectively just assembled all 3 bearings onto the triangle gear. And these bearings are what are going to be moving your water because you have the hose running through this channel right here. These bearings will effectively push on that hose and move the water through it as it rotates. The next thing we'll do, we'll go to insert. We want the servo. We do not want these servo parts. The servo is an assembly. So we'll go up here and click on assemblies. Click on servo. We'll bring it in. We'll hit check. First, let's look at what happens when we try and drag the servo right now. The servo is made of various parts, and they're not really assembled yet. They're just brought in together. So what we're going to do is do Control Z to put it back together. We're going to highlight it, highlight the servo, go up here to the top bar, click on group, and then hit check. And now when we drag the servo, everything moves together. So now that we've done that, we're going to do a fasten mate again. We're going to click on the hole closest to the servo mount. So this is the mount right here. So we're going to click on this hole. Make sure that marker is in the middle of the hole like it is now. We don't want it up here. We want it right in the middle. And then we'll come to the mount. We'll click on this hole right here. Again, make sure the marker is in the middle of the hole. The servo will come over. If it is like this, you can just do reorient, 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 and then flip primary axis. And this is how we want it. So you can use the flip and the reorient to move it around to get where you want it. So when it's like this, we'll hit the check mark. And so now our servo is mounted the way we want. You'll notice there are these holes on the mount. You can use those holes to actually screw your servo down with the servo mount screws you have in your electronics kit. So these holes will allow you to actually mount the servo to the pump mount when you actually build everything. So we'll close the fasten mate, go back to insert. We'll get the servo horn, bring it in, hit your check. We're going to do a revolute again. So I'm going to zoom in on the horn. We're going to choose not the back circle. We're going to choose that front circle right here. And then go over to the servo and choose this inner circle right here. Again, make sure that marker is where it is as shown right here. So we'll click on that. Again, we'll do a reorient or do a flip. And now the horn is effectively mounted to the servo. We'll close this. And now when I move the horn, it rotates about the servo. You'll notice that it looks like the horn is striking the edge. The horn you'll have to your servo is a little bit shorter than this one. So this will not be an issue when you actually assemble your pump and with your team. Go back to insert again. We're going to get one more thing. We're going to do the 14th tooth gear. Bring it in. Hit your check. We'll do a fasten mate. So we'll zoom in, click on this circle, and then we will go to the horn and click on this upper circle, not the lower one. We'll click on this upper one. The gear will be upside down. If it is, just flip it and then hit your check. We're going to close the fasten mate. So now we have this gear that moves. We have this gear that moves. We're going to make these two react to each other. So to do that, we're going to click on the gear relation at the top. We're going to click on revolute 1 and then revolute 2. And then it's asking for a relation ratio, which all that is the gear ratio. So we're going to say it's a 2-to-1 ratio. Just type in a 2 and then hit your check. So now when the gears move, when this big one moves, the other gear responds to it. If your gears are not aligned, like if this tooth is inside this one, you can fix that by going into your fastened, double clicking on it, doing offset, so click on offset, and rotating the gear until they align. So we're going to look at our three axes here. We have the y-axis, the x-axis, and then the z-axis is going vertical. So we're going to change this to say rotate about z. And then you can just arbitrarily type in how many degrees you want to move, and you'll see the gear moves. So in this case, my gear's aligned, so I don't need to move that. But if your gears, when you do your gear relation, have the teeth kind of inside each other, you can just manually move them to get them to align like I have here. Once you have this assembled, you'll submit this to the Canvas assignment. So this is effectively the product that you'll submit to the Canvas assignment. So you have your small gear, your big gear, your servo horn, your 3 bearings, your bearing inside the mount, and then that triangle gear that you made earlier in this video. So again, this is effectively the product that you'll submit to the assignment. And if you and your team decide to do a 4-to-1 ratio or a 3-to-1 ratio, the process for assembling this is exactly the same, aside from just using those different gears in place of these gears.